Hello. Now, what we're going to look at today is how to find a formula, how to find an argument for what the numbers in a list or in a pattern should be. So we're going to find a rule that's going to tell us any of the numbers that is going to be in our list, in our pattern. And that's what we're aiming for. To do that, we're going to use a formula from something called the log tables, or the formula tables. This is our term that we're already familiar with. So the term is the numbers in our pattern, in our list. A is the first letter in the alphabet, and it means something a little bit similar here. It's the first term in our pattern. So A is the first term. So A in this case would be 2. T1 would be 2. So A is the same as the first term is the same as 2 in this case, for this example here. Plus brackets we know mean multiply. N is the number of our term, so N here would be 1, and for our second term is 2, T2. That's what our N means, and it's the same here. Close bracket means we're multiplying by whatever this is, and D is the difference between the terms. And we know for our patterns that the difference is the same between all of our terms. So if we take this example here, what are we doing to get between our numbers? We are adding 3 each time. So our difference, D, would be 3. D for difference is 3 because we're adding 3 each time. And A is our first term. That's the first number in our list. Now, those are the different parts of the formula we're going to use. This is our first time using something that looks this abstract, but you have actually used formulas before, like when you'd be getting distance, speed, and time. So if the speed is equal to the distance divided by the time, we might be familiar with that. So we have used patterns and relationships like this before, but this one has a little bit more maths going on. But let's put it into practice and see how we do. So if I want to find the rule that will give me any number in my list, any t in my list, I'm going to write down Tn is equal to A I have found is 2 plus bracket n minus 1 close bracket, and D is 3. Now I know if I have a number sitting next to a bracket, it means multiply. But I haven't come across this business before where I have a letter that I have to do anything with. So this is algebra. What we're about to do right now is the beginnings of our work in algebra. Okay, so this is an important step. We are going to start our work in algebra, and we're going to get a little bit comfortable with some of our algebra rules. So one of the rules that we need is that when we're multiplying out like this, we're going to take the number outside, and we're going to outside the bracket, and we're going to multiply it by all of the stuff that's inside our bracket. These bits here. So we're used to something like this. If we had 3 multiplied by 2, we'd just multiply 3 by 2 and we'd get 6. We're going to do basically the same thing here. What we're going to do is take, so our next line is going to be 2 plus 3 multiplied by n, our number in our term, our number of terms, is going to be 3 multiplied by n. We don't know what that works out to at the moment, so we're just going to call it 3 times n. And the way that we write that is just the number sitting next to the letter, just like the number sitting next to a bracket means multiply, a number sitting next to a letter means multiply. And then 3 multiplied by minus 1 is going to be minus 3. That part we already know how to do. Now I have a minus 3 and a plus 2. So let's count them up. I have 3n I can't add nothing with, but minus 3 plus 2 I'm left at minus 1. So this means I have a rule now. If I know what term I want in my list, I just put in that number for n. So if I wanted the first term in my list, that would be 3 by 1. I know 3 multiplied by whatever number n is. Minus 1 is 3 minus 1 is equal to 2. So that checks out. That is the first number in my list. And say T3 would be 3, n is 3 minus 1 is 9 minus 1 is equal to 8. And I can see that I have 8 is my third term. So this is a rule that gives me all of the terms in my list. And the way that we find it is to use this formula here, which at the moment is a little bit unusual for us, but we get used to it very quickly. So again, we find out what A is and what D is. We put them in where A and D are in our formula. Then we multiply out this bracket by multiplying each thing in. We add up our numbers. We can't add 3n to any of our numbers because it has an n in it. So, and we're left with 3 times n. 3 times whatever our term number is minus 1 gives us any number in our list. So if we wanted to know what the 100th number in this list would be, if we kept writing this out, this is the first 4 numbers in our list. If we kept going for the first 100 numbers in our list, what would that look like? It would be 3 by 100 minus 1 would be 300 minus 1 would be 299. So this gives us a way of finding any number in our list at all. Now let's follow exactly the same steps for another example. If this is our pattern of numbers, we start at 10, the next number is 4, the next number is minus 2, the next number is minus 8. What is our connection? What have we got connecting our numbers? Well, we're subtracting 6 each time. Now, if I want to know what the rule is for this, the Tn for this, or the nth term for this, I'm going to write down my formula, which I will get used to over time. It's a little bit strange now, but we will get used to it. And my A, I know, is my first term, which is 10. And my D is the difference, and it is minus 6. I'm minusing 6 away from each term to get to the next term. So let's put that into our formula. Tn is equal to, the first term is 10 plus n minus 1 on, the difference is minus 6. And I know if I have minus 6 outside of a bracket, I multiply by each thing inside the bracket. And we put in these little arrows, these little arms that remind us what we're going to multiply by. And we do that for a while until we get comfortable with our algebra multiply. 10, and I'm going to have n plus n multiplied by minus 6 is going to give me, plus by minus is minus 6 multiplied by n, I just write as 6n. This means 6 multiplied by n when they sit right next to each other without any sign in between. And then minus multiplied by minus will give me plus 6 multiplied by 1 will give me 6. And then I add up my numbers, my 10 and my 6. And I end up with minus 6n plus 16. Now this is a rule that tells me exactly what term any term that I want in my list here. So this is term 1 when n is 1. When n is 2, it's term 2. When n is 3, is term 3, and so on. So if I wanted to know my third term, that would be when n is 3. I know that I should get minus 2. Let's see if I do. I have minus 6 multiplied by 3 plus 16. Minus by plus is minus 6 by 3 is 18 plus 16 is equal to minus 2. So I can see that I have a rule that gives me any number in my list, which can be very useful if I need to figure out important stuff in my list. So this is the type of work that we're going to get comfortable with. We're always going to write down this formula. We're going to multiply it out in the same way. So we're going to get very comfortable with this kind of multiply. And then we're going to be able to write it neatly so that we're able to find out any term in our list. And that's what we're going to need for our starting work in algebra. And just to highlight it, this is a really important step in our work in maths, because we now have a way of putting in a value for n and it producing a different value, a term in our list. So we can put in the numbers for n, and we now have a rule that gives us the numbers, the terms in our list. So this is a big step in our mathematical work. We can put in a value for something and get out a value for something else. We can relate things together using maths. And this is really where maths starts, where we can relate different quantities together, and we can start to do really solid maths once we start understanding that. So that's what we need for our patterns formula.